Few car manufacturers have transformed their image quite like Kia. Now, Kia is a brand that has always really been well known for its solid build quality, its practical value for money motoring vehicles, and also its impressive warranties. A few cars in the range epitomise this ethos quite as well as the Sportage, because the Sportage also has in top line spec the thing that Kia has put on top of its reputation, and that is now cars that offer all of the tech that you would expect from premium vehicles. If you are looking for a family vehicle that is a workhorse, has a strong warranty and is reliable, chances are you're looking at this, the Kia Sportage. In this need to know used car review, we'll dig a little deeper into what this car has to offer and find out which one is best for you if you're in the market. The Kia Sportage has been around for just over 30 years now, with the first model produced as an alliance with Ford and Mazda. Now, that car was never officially introduced to the UK. That was reserved for the second generation model, which was a co-production with the Tucson from sister brand Hyundai. This generation ran till 2010 when the third generation arrived, and it was a far more stylish and European focused offering. It proved an extremely popular car, and off the back of that, this fourth generation was launched 5 years later. Now, visually, the fourth gen built on the stylish looks of the third gen with a much more upmarket look, especially on higher spec models. If I were to describe the interior of the Sportage in one word, I would say robust. This is a car that is built for family life, so there are lots of hard wearing scratchy plastics all around the cabin, and that really does make sense given the price point of the vehicle and the usage of the vehicle. You want a car that's built to last, not a car that's full of luxury expensive materials that are easily damaged. With regards to the layout, well, we've got a lot of buttons in the Sportage actually. Not a lot of stuff is buried inside the screen, and I personally like a bit of a mix. I don't like cars where it's all in the screen, and I don't like cars where it's all in the buttons. And I think the Kia Sportage, it's a little bit too button heavy. There's a lot going on here, and it can be a little bit difficult to identify what it is that you need on the move. But what these buttons do demonstrate is the amount of equipment we have on board in this GT Line S trim. As I say, you pick a high spec version of a Kia vehicle nowadays and you are going to have all the toys that you could possibly wish for. We have heated seats, cooled seats, a heated steering wheel. The seats are adjusted electronically. We have JBL speakers as well, so you've got a good sound system. In terms of the more standard items that you're going to get across the range, well, we have this touchscreen infotainment system, and I will say that it is incredibly dated. It's probably the one aspect of the car that hasn't stood up to the test of time. I mean, it works completely fine, and it's relatively straightforward and intuitive to use, and you can use Android Auto and Apple CarPlay if you wish. But compared to European rivals, it really does fall down. The graphics just aren't as slick, and it doesn't feel as modern. We have a 12-volt socket port up here at the front. We have a wireless charging pad, and we've got a USB port as well. So you have plenty of options for charging your phone, and also you're able to connect it quite easily to the car. For practicality purposes, well, we have a couple of cup holders up here at the front. We've got a very good size within the armrest, and also you can store a decent sized bottle in the door bin too. Before I touch upon what it's like to be a passenger here in the back of the Sportage, let's quickly discuss trim levels, because there are a lot of options. There are actually 6 trim levels to choose from, starting from 1 going up to 4, then also first edition and this car that we've got, which is GT Line. It's worth knowing that even base models of this car, well, they get 16-inch alloys, front fog lamps, aircon, DAB and cruise control. Upgrade to 2 and you're adding parking sensors, automatic wipers and a 7-inch touchscreen infotainment system. Opt for 3 and you get a bigger touchscreen and also an improved sound system. Opt for 4 and you get some more luxury items such as ventilated seats, the heated steering wheel, electronic seats, keyless entry and start, and some additional safety equipment too. Opt for the first edition or KX5 on later models, and you'll get automatic parking systems, an electric tailgate and wireless charging. Finally, the GT spec which we have today has all of those things and also slightly more aggressive styling. As a backseat passenger, how do I find it? Well, I have had to move the seating position slightly forward from my position, so I'm just over 6'1", so I'm relatively tall, so I have the seat pretty much all the way back. So I've moved it just a little bit forwards into a position that will be comfortable for, I'm guessing, 90% of drivers. I've found myself with plenty of space back here in the Sportage. I've got lots of knee room, I've got room for my feet under the chair in front of me, and I can also almost sit up straight. I can't quite sit up straight because it's a common problem for me in the back of vehicles with a panoramic sunroof. That sunroof eats into the headspace, so I can't sit up straight. But I think if you've got older children or average size adults, they will have more than enough space back here. There's also not too much of a transmission tunnel, so even if you have a middle seat passenger, they should be okay in terms of room for their feet. What do we have back here? Well, we've got some netting in the back of the seats to store loose items. There is a USB socket as well as a 12-volt socket as well, so plenty of options for charging devices back here. There aren't any climate controls, but you can adjust the vents. And what we do have on this GT line model is some very nice comfy seats that are also heated. So even your rear seat passengers, well, they don't have to worry about feeling cold on those frosty mornings. With regards to kids, well, the doors open nice and wide, so it's easy to get a child seat in and out of the back of the Sportage. And there are ISOFIX points on both of the outer seats, and they've got some handy plastic covers that pop down very easily to allow you to slide the ISOFIX into place. We've also got an armrest with a couple of cup holders as well. So all in all, I would say that it's actually a very comfortable place to be. These seats are really quite comfortable in the back. Onto the boot, and this is actually, I think, probably the most disappointing part of the Sportage, because the Sportage only offers 491 litres of space, which in this segment isn't all that much. If you're looking at a Volkswagen Tiguan, for example, you're going to find 615 litres of space, which is quite a significant jump. In terms of the space that you do have, well, this is a family SUV, so of course heavier items are going to have to be heaved up a bit higher than they would be in an estate car, but you do have a nice flat loading area here. You've got some scuff plates as well, so reducing the chances of damaging the back of the car if you're lifting heavy items in or out. The space itself is not quite square because of these wheel arches that intrude into the space, and there aren't really any lashing points, any netting. There's not really a lot here to help you with smaller loose items. Underneath the force floor, we've got a spare wheel, and there is a bit of space down there to stick some smaller items. But all in all, yeah, it's a decent sized space. It's relatively usable, but it does lack a few features, and it's not quite as big as some of its rivals. Engine choices in the Kia Sportage are relatively straightforward. There are 2 petrols and 3 diesels. The petrol comes in a 1.6 litre unit. You could either have that with 128 horsepower or a turbocharged unit with over 170 horsepower. Originally, the Sportage came with a 1.7 litre diesel unit that only had 114 horsepower, but is probably the most popular choice actually for cars of that age. There's also a 2 litre diesel unit that has 134 horsepower or just over 180 horsepower. There are 2 variants. When the car was facelifted in 2018, we got a 1.6 litre diesel engine, the GDI. That replaced the 1.7, so it replaced like for like with a 1.6 litre unit that had 114 horsepower, so a lower powered diesel. But it also came with a slightly higher powered unit which has 134 horsepower. In terms of what engine to opt for, well, if you want to completely avoid diesel, then there are those petrol choices for you. But in a car like this, you know, a family SUV, and the same goes for a family estate or an MPV, you generally tend to find that, in my opinion, the sweet spot of the range is always one of those middle powered diesels. So not the lowest powered diesel, because yes, the lowest powered diesel will generally give you the best in outright economy, but the middle of the range gives you, I think, the best overall blend of power and economy. Now, these cars are not made to be performance vehicles. When I talk about power, it's more about being able to carry you and your occupants and get onto a motorway with no problem, or overtake a caravan or something on a country lane. You know, just enough power to do something like that. And I think that therefore the 1.6 GDI that we've got in this car today with 134 horsepower, it's the best all-rounder for all of those things, I think. How does the Sportage handle and drive? Well, it's actually quite surprising. For a family SUV, it's quite taut. It's surprisingly stiff. Maybe too stiff, I think, at low speeds. You do kind of feel like you're crashing around a bit, but the car is certainly not wobbly. There's no pitch or roll when you're going around corners. Not that you're going to throw this car around corners, but you know what it's like if you've got occupants in the back. You don't want a car that's wobbling around, because yeah, that makes you feel sick if you're a rear seat passenger. So the stiff suspension setup is surprising, but actually okay. Just, yeah, a little bit uncomfortable at lower speeds, but you really feel the benefit of it at higher speeds. The car is actually really quite a nice place to be. I think the seats are relatively comfortable. I am in a comfortable driving position for myself. So as I mentioned, I am just over 6'1", and yeah, I think I could settle in for some time behind the wheel in this position. You've got obviously a nice raised driving position as well that you would expect with a family SUV. It actually feels a little bit higher than you think it would do looking at the car from the outside. So you've got a decent bit of vision around you. And it doesn't feel like a big car, the Sportage. It feels like it's very, very maneuverable. So you do have a reversing camera, and that is not the best quality, shall we say, but between the camera and the parking sensors, I think it's relatively easy to fit the Sportage into a space on the street or a multi-storey car park, for example. There we go. There, it's also got obviously plenty of safety tech to help you. So that was the blind spot monitoring, because I was indicating to change lane and there was a van there. So there are plenty of driver aids in the car as well, and it's just set up for family life as you would expect for a car of this age, and everything feels very well screwed together. It's a Kia after all, so you are expecting it to last and to stand up to family life, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't check thoroughly. So yes, the car will have come with a 7-year warranty, so you've got a very, very good chance that with a Kia Sportage the car will have been looked after properly by the previous owners. But this is a family workhorse at the end of the day, so it's always worth checking out that everything works, that there's no damage around the rear seats, for example. If there have been kids in the back, there's no damage, there's no scuffs, there's no cuts in the leather if you've got leather seats like we have today. The car can be well equipped at higher trim levels, so make sure that everything works. So those electronic seats, make sure that they work. The heated seats, make sure that they work. The other thing to check is the suspension as well. There is the potential that the Sportage could have been, bumped up and down curbs. Like I say, it's an SUV, so it may not have been treated the kindest. So just when you're on that test drive, just check that there's no knocking from the suspension. Nothing feels saggy or baggy. Like I say, this is a car that actually feels really quite tight and well put together. It doesn't feel like it's sagging or aging at all, to be honest with you. It's stood up to the test of time in terms of how it drives really quite well. So if you do all of those checks and you have a good look round and there's nothing that jumps out to you, then you should find that, yeah, this is going to be a robust family vehicle that will continue to really work well in family life. So there you have it, the 4th generation Kia Sportage. This is a car, well, it's a car that does exactly what you'd expect. It's practical, it's good value for money, and well, it's going to be pretty reliable and have solid build quality too. And opt for the right spec, and well, you'll find that it's actually a pretty premium place to be as well. Which one should you go for? Well, we would say the pick of the range really in terms of engine choices is going to be either 1.7 or 1.6 diesel units, and we'd also say to opt for spec wise 2 or 3 upwards, so you really make sure you get some of those extra bells and whistles to elevate the experience. If you've watched this review and you decided actually the Kia Sportage isn't for you, well, there are a number of rivals out there within this segment. There's plenty of choice. We'd say it's worth considering the Volkswagen Tiguan or the Nissan Qashqai as well. If you've enjoyed this video, please give us a like. Remember, subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so that you are notified every time we release a new video like this.